On today's Family Vacationer, we're imagining ourselves in the Florida Keys. Britt Meyers of Keys Weekly stops by to give his take on what makes this part of the country a must-see. Episode 20 starts right now.
Welcome to the Family Vacationer with Rob and Danny. The go-to podcast for families on the move.
Welcome, friends. I'm Danny.
And I'm Rob.
And this is the 20th episode of the Family Vacationer. Now, today we're going to start our domestic travel series. So we're going to be focusing on places right here in the U.S. that are worthy of a visit. And, you know, Rob, there's no better place to start than the Florida Keys.
That's true.
Now, the Keys, just to give you a little background here, the Keys were chartered by Juan Ponce de Leon. Can you say that, Rob?
No, but I like hearing you say it.
Everybody says Ponce de Leon.
That's in Atlanta. Ponce de Leon.
Ponce de Leon. Well, but the Keys were chartered by Juan Ponce de Leon in 1513. Now, he was searching for the Fountain of Youth. Ponce de Leon named the Keys Los Mártires, which means the martyrs. Now, because the islands resembled suffering men from a distance, 1,700 islands make up the Keys, extending from Soldier Keys to Dry Tortugas. Now, there's no record of anyone actually going ashore in the area for hundreds of years, so left the area mostly to pirates until around 1822, when the fledgling U.S. Navy chased them away. Now, early settlers followed, setting up rows and rows of key limes, tamarind, and breadfruit. Pineapple farms flourished in the lower Keys to the point that the area supplied pineapple to most of eastern North America. Wreckers salvaged ships that smashed against the shore. Some said the wreckers lured ships to crash, but regardless, these salvage operations helped Key West become one of the wealthiest cities in the U.S. And wealthy travelers soon flocked to Key West on newly built railroad. It didn't last as the Great Depression bankrupted the city, and a hurricane actually destroyed the railroad. In its place, an overseas highway was born and laid the foundation for what Key West would become. Throw in a U.S. Navy submarine base and commercial harvesting of shrimp in 1949, and you have an area of the country rich in history and personality. Still, if you quiz most travelers, I would imagine a large number would mention Ernest Hemingway when talking about Key West. The author lived and wrote in Key West for more than 10 years, including some of his most recognized books, Death in the Afternoon, The Fifth Column, and The Snows of Kilimanjaro.
So you got pirates.
Yes.
You got sun. You got sand. You got Ernest Hemingway. You've got beautiful turquoise water. Delicious food and drink. I mean, that's a pretty interesting soup and surely makes for a place that I want to visit.
Absolutely. Let's go.
So what's there to do in the Keys? There's a bunch to do in the Keys. We just mentioned Ernest Hemingway. You can visit the Hemingway House and Museum. The home has many original pieces of furniture, including the author's prized collection of 17th and 18th century Spanish furniture. The gardens surrounding the home are another attraction for the beautiful landscape, and there's 40 cats that evidently have made this area home.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems a little spooky to me, but anyway.
Yes.
There's world-famous Duval Street, which runs from Mallory Square to the southernmost point marker that you see everybody taking pictures at when they're in Key West. The area is home to several annual festivals and parades, including Hemingway Days, which is a 10-day costume party in October. Camping, as we've mentioned on another show, that's another fun activity in the Keys. Areas like Bahia State Park, it's home to one of Florida's most beautiful beaches. It's a little different. They're not white sand beaches like you see in the Gulf, but still beautiful beaches. The area offers snorkeling and beach equipment rentals. Now, 70 miles from Key West, the Dry Tortugas National Park offers more snorkeling opportunities, and historic Fort Jefferson, which is a massive 19th century fortification, takes up an entire island. But this area is only accessible by boat or by seaplane. Marathon is the sport fishing capital of the Middle Keys, offering deep sea, reef, and flats fishing. Marathon's also home to the Turtle Hospital, the Dolphin Research Center, and Aquarium Encounters. Well, that's the background of the Keys and kind of an outsider's view. For the insider's view, let's bring in Britt Meyers. Britt Meyers is owner and publisher of Keys Weekly Media, which produces 3 independent weekly papers in the Florida Keys and has offices in Key West, Marathon, and Key Largo. Keys Weekly is the largest distributed print media company in the Florida Keys, along with a production of over 40 magazines annually. Britt moved to the Keys in 2006 and currently resides in Key West with his son Tristan, his wife Kirby, and stepsons Hudson and Dylan. Britt currently serves on the Key West Chamber of Commerce, the Florida Keys AHEC Board, former Marathon Chamber of Commerce Board President, a graduate of Leadership Monroe County, member of the Key West Business Guild, Key West and Florida Keys Lodging Association, a proud member of many other local organizations, and, as I hear, an above-average dancer. All right, well, Britt, welcome to the show.
I'm very flattered that you would have me on after all these years. So excited to be here. So in all sincerity, thank you.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you.
So, Britt, what makes the Keys such a unique travel destination for people?
You could answer that question in about 30 minutes, but to break it down, it's really one of the few remaining places I feel like in the United States that you can still go get the Caribbean sort of out of the country feel, the rustic feel that's still preserved, but you don't need a passport to do it, which right now I feel like is important. You can get away, you can come by plane, you can come by car, as you know, and there's still just so much rich history, so much nostalgia, so much art, so many arts, the food. It appeals to such a wide range of people, from families to married couples, adults, you name it, a wide spectrum of people, no matter what color, creed, race. It's just a really cool place. Again, I could go on and on, but that's the tip of the iceberg. But that's the Florida Keys for you, from the nature, the beautiful waters, of course, the boating, the diving, the food. Keep saying the food. We'll talk about that, but it's a great place.
I didn't actually tell you this, but this is the first of our domestic travel series because with COVID-19 and everything surrounding it, we fully believe that domestic travel is going to be the first thing that comes back. So with that being the case, the Keys are a natural place to go because, again, you do get the Caribbean feel without having to leave the country. So that's important. What do you feel are common misconceptions about the Keys? I mean, one of the things in my head is, well, it's a party town, but for families, there's still plenty to do, correct?
So it's interesting. So the first big myth that a lot of people have is, if you haven't been here, that Key West is sort of the Florida Keys. And I love Key West. I live in Key West. But the Keys are, over 110-mile stretch of different islands, from Key Largo to Islamorada to Marathon and Big Pine and down to Key West. And it's, and even to the aspect of Key West, are there bars and parties and things to go to? Of course there are. But it's so much more than that, so much more than T-shirt shops and bars that you might find in other coastal areas. And I think the misconceptions, too, a lot of times is it's a big Corona commercial with white sand like you might see in the Gulf Coast. We have beaches, and they're beautiful, and the waters are unparalleled in the States, but it's not quite the white sands of Gulf Coast because we're on a reef. So that's why the diving and the boating all throughout those shallow waters and flats and crystal clear waters are so important. So that being said, I think those misconceptions are two of the biggest. And I think it's also the idea that it's a bunch of older people, retirement community. There's such a wide range of people that live here that are locals up and down that stretch I mentioned, of all ages, and working people. And it's not just huts and bars and those types of things. So it's really an incredible place. But you can find all of that if you want it. But there's a little bit for everyone. But misconception that it's sort of the Jimmy Buffett world. And we all love Jimmy Buffett. But it's not necessarily that bubble that people tend to perceive.
What are some of those must-see attractions down there?
Attractions, I mean, it depends on which part of the Keys that you're in. Obviously, some of the more typical that jump out that you really should see are like the Hemingway House, which is so historic. You have things in the Middle Keys like the Turtle Hospital, which is one of the biggest turtle rescue and rehabilitation hospitals you'll see. The Dolphin Research Center also does incredible work for dolphins, and kids love that place. It's so huge. If you haven't seen that, just check it out online. You'll see how cool that is. In Key West, you have a butterfly conservatory, which is unlike many in the country that you'll ever see. Of course, some of the state parks that you can go to, one in particular in Key West is Fort Jefferson, which is about 35, 40 miles off of Key West. You can take a biplane out there. You can take a catamaran, and the snorkeling and the history of that old Civil War fort that's out in the water is incredible. So some of those I mentioned are must-see. Again, a 20-minute conversation. I could name a lot. You've got your tourist spots. You've got the southernmost point. That's a great place to take a picture. If you're into the restaurant and bar scene, there's places like Sloppy Joe's in Key West or what have you. There's the History of Dive Museum in the Upper Keys. Such a wide range of things, but I think some of those I named are kind of must-sees while you're here. And depending on where you're planning to travel to, if you choose to, you could spend a whole month in one area of the Keys and do plenty, or you could do an entire trip just coming down and hitting some of the spots. So that's the cool thing about the Keys.
Now, you kept mentioning food, and food is very important to me. So let's talk about, now Sloppy Joe's gets all the pub, but let's talk about what are your favorite places to eat in the Keys.
Man, so I live in Key West. My company, I'm fortunate. I have 3 different offices in the Keys, and so I'm a food guy. I love going up and down the Keys and eating. And this will not do it justice. There are so many restaurants, and that's one of the really cool things about the Keys. As it used to be just fresh seafood and different things, but I guess for lack of a better word, American fusion is a new thing that people like to say. So from food trucks to outdoor dining to fine dining, there's so much of it here. For me here in Key West, for example, restaurants that are Italian, like La Trattoria, that really fuses in the seafood and lobster and shrimp into things. If you like breakfast, Two Friends Patio is historic. It's sort of a bucket list place you have to go to, along with Blue Heaven, which is a great seafood place. Little Pearl, Matt's is a place out on Stock Island, really historic old shrimping and fishing island, kind of tucked away beside Key West. If you go to the Upper Keys, Pierre's restaurant is amazing, along with Old Tavernier, Ziggy Mad Dogs. And Marathon has some really cool places as well, like Castaways, Sparky's. And you might like this if you go to a place called Keys Fisheries. It's a fisheries that ships out lobster and seafood throughout the world, famous for their lobster Reuben. If you come down, you got to stop at Keys Fisheries for a lobster Reuben. It will probably change your life. So there's just so many places, but that's, again, I'm not doing it justice, but those are some places. If you're listening, make some notes and kind of go from there, and you'll find about 50 more.
Well, now we didn't talk about this, but our expectation is that you're going to send us samples from all these places. Is that not?
Right.
That's, we thought you're at.
I didn't see what I was getting paid for this bit, so you let me know. But yeah, I'll be happy to send some samples up. So
I'm sure they'll be fresh by the time they get here.
So what about the iconic hotels in the Keys? So can you tell us about some that are worth a stay if you're down there?
Yeah. So again, I'll kind of jump around the Keys for you to give you an idea. In Key West, there's so many vacation rentals and really quaint B&Bs that are just amazing. So if you look at those lists, you can't go wrong there. From the resorts and hotels, you've got some here in Key West, like Casa Marina is a really famous one. It's a Waldorf resort at this point. Pier House is an amazing resort here in Key West. Has a lot of history to it. There's an old bar in the Pier House called the Chart Room. Chart Room is famous. That's the first bar that Jimmy Buffett ever played in, according to most people you talk to. It's also, according to legend, the first American location that Bob Marley ever played at.
Oh, wow.
So if you go to the Pier House, the old Chart Room bar is still there. Tiny bar, serves hot dogs for free. Old wooden floor, popcorn. Just a really cool place you got to go to. Other places in Key West, of course, Southernmost Beach Resort, Ocean Key Resort, Marathon. Especially if you're talking about family, one of the most talked about family resorts in the Florida Keys is Hawks Cay Resort. Hawks Cay is right there beside the Dolphin Research Center that we spoke about earlier, along with the Isla Bella Resort in Marathon and the Alamorada Upper Keys area. Chica Lodge is really cool. The Moorings is a great place. If you like Bloodline, filmed most of the house that you see, a lot of that stuff is out there by the Moorings, which is really cool. So if you watched that Netflix show and liked that look, you can go there for that. The Islander is really cool up there, and Key Largo, the Bungalows, and the Mariners Club. So those are all amazing places. You can't go wrong again, and there's so many more, but those are some that I would definitely check out. And some of those you'll see pop up as you do a search, but they're all well worth a look.
So let's back up for a second. I meant to do this at the beginning. As I was looking at the Keys, what I saw, how the grouping, there was an Upper Keys, Mid Keys, Lower Keys, and then Key West. Is that, if people are looking for places to stay, trying to book a trip, is that how they would attack it? Or is there Is there a different way to approach it?
You could approach it some different ways. I think a lot of people sort of refer to the Keys to simplify it, especially if you live here, as the Upper Keys, Middle Keys, and Lower Keys in Key West. And depending on what you're looking for, you could pick one and do an entire trip in any of the areas.
Oh, wow.
Or you could do a couple of nights in each area. Again, your Upper Keys are more centered toward, and there's a lot of different keys. Most are very small, but some of your more notable with municipalities and different things are Key Largo and Isla Mirada in the Upper Keys, along with Tavernier. You'll hear Tavernier thrown into that mix. Middle Keys is usually dominated by Marathon in that area. And as you go to the Lower Keys and Big Pine, that sort of stretches down through Summerlin and Sugarloaf, all the way down to the southernmost key and southernmost point, which is Key West. So, yeah, I think from a local perspective, it tends to be, hey, I have to run up to the Middle Keys from Key West today, or Upper Keys. Middle Keys kind of starts and ends around Marathon in that area. And then the Upper Keys kind of starts around the Isla Mirada area, up past Key Largo and out of the Keys. And to answer your question earlier, too, about some really unique places to stay, I left one out, and extremely historic with tons of stars and presidents and you name it. Staying there is a place called Little Palm Island. Little Palm Island is a really neat place. If you want to look that one up, you have to take a ferry out there. It's very high end, but they also don't put televisions in the bungalows and things like that. So you really get off the grid. You get the high end feel of what you're looking for, and you still get the nostalgic sort of off the grid feel on top of it, with a great restaurant out there and some different things. So that's really cool.
Who needs a TV when you're in the Keys? I mean, come on. Just wasting.
Get rid of the cell phone.
Just wasting your time there.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what about the festivals? Are there any family-friendly festivals that go on that people can visit?
Yeah, so that's a good question. You know, the Keys are known for one of their biggest festivals, so it gets a misconception, which is Fantasy Fest in Key West, which is kind of our Mardi Gras. Mm-hmm. And it has been known to be sort of the Anything Goes festival. That one's actually changed with a new person who took that festival over that has become much more family-friendly. But it's not something I would necessarily throw into the top-tier family-friendly festivals. But I want to make sure I mention that's not necessarily the reputation of that festival has really kind of been based on the past, and it's really changed into something really cool. For family, we have mini lobster season. You may have heard of mini lobster season. That's usually in July. This year it's like July 29th through the end of July, 2 days. You need a license. You get the family. You get a boat. You go out. You get your limits on lobster. We have our South Florida lobster down here.
Wow.
In my opinion, just as good to eat as a Maine lobster, just no claws. So, and that's why you go down and catch them. Come back in. That's really cool. Your 4th of July and your Memorial Days are always fun, but your seafood festivals down here, particularly your Marathon and Key West Seafood Festival, such a cool thing. The Marathon usually takes place like mid-March, and the Key West Seafood Festival takes place typically mid-January, and that's put on by the commercial fishermen associations down here to raise money for their causes and preservation and everything else that they go through. And that's really the historic backbone of these communities. And so those festivals, tons to do for kids, plenty of beer for the adults, rides, shopping. But man, the seafood, you can't go wrong at those festivals. So come down and spend some time around those. Yeah, you have Key Lime Fest, Papio Parade, even Pride Fest, depending on what you're looking for. But you've got a lot of family festivals that gear towards different types of families, whatever it might be. But man, the seafood festivals, I look forward to it every year. Just incredible stuff.
Well, even with Mardi Gras in New Orleans, I mean, there's Mardi Gras in the quarter, and then there's Mardi Gras other places. So I mean, it's not as simple. People see all the festivities from the quarter, but it's about a lot more than that. So the Hemingway Days, is that part of what you're talking about?
That's a separate festival that goes on. I mean, I see more adults at that, but again, if you have an adult, that's what's cool about it, Rob. It's a good question. So if you have someone who sees a music festival, Mile Zero Fest that we have down here, or Songwriters Fest, where all the songwriters from Nashville, and we'll have Brad Paisley here, or Cole Swindell, or whoever it might be. But things like that, even the Hemingway Days, if you're an adult, you're interested in that, if you bring the kids with you, you can't go wrong. You'll have stuff for the adults to do, plenty for the kids to do. It just depends on when you want to come and what appeals to you. So that's always here. That's a good question.
I have several friends in Nashville that are songwriters that aren't people that you would know right off the bat, but they write for people that you would know. And so they do a lot of the festivals in Key West and the Panhandle as well. So the music's a big thing in the Keys. I mean, there's a movement, a lot of festivals going on, correct?
There is, and we just had Willie Nelson here just before the coronavirus pandemic kind of set in. So we have everyone from Willie Nelson to you'll see Jimmy Buffett bringing down George Strait, or names like that as they run around. I saw Zach Brown one night at a concert at the Key West Theater, hanging out. And in the Key West Theater is a group that's really changed that. Rams Head Entertainment, bring down a lot of big names. But what's really cool about the Keys, and it's not just Key West, or confined to Key West, but particularly Key West, the local singer-songwriters, you're hearing more and more people. I don't think Key West is necessarily going to be Athens, Georgia, Seattle, or Austin, but it's really becoming a music town that's getting noticed in a lot of places. And the Songwriters Festival has helped that, and some other things. And then, of course, the emergence of an amphitheater. There's a really nice amphitheater down here where the Avett Brothers have played. Again, Willie Nelson, people like that. It's really putting Key West on the music radar, which is really cool. And as a local, I mean, it's awesome to be able, particularly night of the week, to go hear a local or somebody playing at the theater,
sure,
or something like that. So if you're visiting, I hear more tourists rave about that. Like, I came down to hang out at the beach, put on my flip-flops, drink my Corona, or do whatever. And then they went to a show, and they're like, how can you beat a show in Key West? And
right.
That's really cool. So, yeah.
So just out of curiosity, we're talking about the different parts of the Keys a while ago. Do you see the different areas of the Keys as kind of their own communities with different personalities, or, what are the different personalities of the different areas there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to be careful not to encapsulate every, you've got right wing, left wing, mm-hmm. all beliefs, anywhere in the world you go, but sort of the traditional, and this is my opinion, the traditional take on the Florida Keys as the upper Keys is a little more conservative, sort of the more laid back conservative kind of area. They deem themselves as the fishing capital of the world up there, and diving capital of the world, things like that. You get those middle Keys and a little more of your historic, for lack of a better word, blue collar, marathon blue collar, fishing, shrimping, people who really made their living and their name off of that type of stuff. And of course that's throughout, but Marathon's sort of known for that. And then as you get down to Key West, sort of the anything goes, from families to party life to LGBT community to churches to whatever it is. It's all in Key West, but it's still got a little more flair to it in terms of the labels we might want to put on things. And they're also really cool and unique. And the best thing about the Keys, no matter if you're in any of those areas that I mentioned, when I say conservative or liberal or this or that, it's not those traditional terms, because anyone you meet down here is going to be friendly. They're going to be open with you. They love talking about the Keys. They love showing people around. For me personally, that's what drew me to the Keys and why I've stayed here as long as I have. It's home for me and my kids now, is the people. The people are just amazing from top to bottom. And you can't find a better place in the world, in my biased opinion, than the Florida Keys when it comes to great people.
So where do you guys stand with COVID-19 and reopening? Is everything open, or?
Well, as we speak today, and talking about that today, it's changing daily. So, as we speak right now, we've had a roadblock at the top of the Keys that has been a big topic of conversation on Fox News and CNN and you name it. It's been covered. That came down last week. Now we have Broward, Miami-Dade, those areas coming down. So in Florida, we're in different phases. Phase 1 has allowed restaurants to open back up with some other businesses. As of Friday, great timing for your show, bars open back up here in the Keys. But we've just seen, as of this past Monday, tourists allowed back into the Keys. The hotels just opened back up. So there's been essential businesses operating down here, but it's sort of been in a bubble with the locals and the local community, which has been very interested. There's been some really incredible pros and some really incredible cons through all that. But this is a town, or a series of towns and communities that, Rob, they've seen hurricanes almost wipe places out before, and they come right back. So I think in a weird way, we're not immune to tough times, but at the same time, we know how to get past it, and we're seeing people do it now. So it's not the first crisis we've ever faced here. That's for sure.
Sure.
A quick question for you personally.
Yeah.
And you know the Keys very well. So I'd be interested to know, what is your favorite spot to take your son?
He would tell you the tablet or the video games or something.
Yeah,
But,
right.
So when I take the kids out here, if you know boating and you're responsible, I would say, out on the boat, you can't beat it, because once you get off the islands and the Keys and you're looking back at it, it's an entirely and really cool different perspective as being on the Keys. You can look at it from the shores and see it. You see the pristine waters, and there's so many sandbars and little islands you can go out to. You can't beat that. Now, but if you're just coming down and you don't have the luxury of a boat, or don't feel like renting one, or what have you, I'm here in Key West. For my son and I, we go to another fort. Now, I mentioned Fort Jefferson earlier. That's one you have to take a ferry out to, or a biplane or a plane. But just off of Key West, on the coast of Key West, is Fort Jefferson, another old Civil War fort. A lot of people don't realize we have a few different Civil War forts that the North constructed here in the Civil War to control the waters and trade through the southern waters here, the Gulf and the Atlantic. So Fort Zachary Taylor is a really cool old fort, and has a beach and some really cool rocks that you can swim out to about 40 yards out with a kid, and you can do some of the best snorkeling that you'll ever find, at least in the Americas, in the continental. Clear waters, beautiful exotic fish, great little beach. It is a state park, so you got to pay $1 or $2 to get in, whatever it is, to get in there. But it's well worth it, and has a nice little food shack, drink shack out there, and very eco-focused. So they're always making sure everyone's keeping up with trash and doing the right things. So, and that's throughout the Keys. It's a very eco-driven area, which is really cool, very protective, and a lot of cool wildlife that you'd never expect. But I really feel like Fort Zachary Taylor encompasses all those things. So if you have a family and you want to spend an entire day, take the charcoal. There's some grills provided out there, charcoal grills, things like. It's just a beautiful place to go. You see a lot of birthday parties out there, plenty of room for everyone, all the way around from the Atlantic side to the Gulf side. One side faces a Coast Guard Navy area. You can watch cruise ships come in. The other side faces another area out towards the Atlantic. It's just a really cool place. So if you ask me my favorite, that's probably right up on top.
So for the people that drive in, because a lot of people I talk to when they're talking about the Keys, they want to fly into Miami and then drive in. That's about a 3-4 hour drive?
Yeah. So again, depends on which key you're going to. From Miami to Key Largo, pretty short drive from the Miami International Airport. So Miami to Key Largo, you're looking at an hour, depending on traffic. But from Miami to Key West, out of the airport, you're looking at, depending on the traffic, all the way that stretch of US 1, you're looking at about 3 to 3.5 hours down to Key West. Wow. So from the airport, and a lot of 2-lane roads, so one slower person who's enjoying the scenery, doing 40 in the 55 zone, you just got to deal with it, love them, and appreciate that they're here and spending money. So that's the way we look at it. But no, it's a cool stretch of road. That's US 1 all the way down to the very last stretch of US 1, Key West, Florida. And I know before the show, Rob, you had mentioned what are some kind of cool things to say you are in Miami and you're driving down to the Keys. Yeah. Is there anything in between to stop and look at? And I was thinking about that. So the top of US 1 starts up near Homestead outside of Miami. And you can jump on US 1 on what's called the 18-mile stretch out of Florida City. And that's what connects the mainland down to Key Largo, is the 18-mile stretch, which is a part of US 1. However, most people don't know there's a detour you can take around that 18-mile stretch that still winds you back into Key Largo, and that's called Card Sound Road, like a playing card, CARD, Card Sound Road. And it's a beautiful road. You can see everything from saltwater crocodiles to even alligators to, if you're very lucky, a panther out on that road. But
from a distance,
and there's a little place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
through a car window.
And that's it. So a great intro to the Keys is in the middle of Card Sound Road. There's a little restaurant called world famous Alabama Jacks. People will tell you it has some of the best conch fritters in the world. So on the way down, stop at Alabama Jacks and grab some conch fritters, and that'll get you ready for the rest of your palate for the food trip. So
Nice. That's like the hors d'oeuvre before you get to the entree. I like that.
Yeah.
So finally for me, what are the secrets that tourists need to know when they come down to the Keys? You told me there were some secrets.
Some I can tell you, some I can't.
It's a family show.
That's right. So really depends on if you want to look like a tourist or not. But don't say conch. Don't say conch fritter. Say conch. There's a conch fritter when you order off the menu. If you're ordering dolphin, that's not flipper. That's a fish. If you're from the mainland, that's mahi mahi. If you want to be cool here, don't call it mahi mahi. Just say I'll take the dolphin. Other than that, the secret is find locals, find out what they know, where they go, and you'll have a different Florida Keys experience. It doesn't mean you'll have anything less than what you pay for, and even more if you don't do that. But if you really want to find the old Florida Keys, and I even still do that, find locals, find out what they know. They love talking to you, and they'll tell you more than you want to know. They'll make stories up. But they'll tell you places that may or may not be advertised because you may not supposed to be there. It may not be enforced. Places like jumping bridges that jump into clear waters and other things like that. So those are the local things. If you have the family, find a local, or I'll do a shameless plug. Pick up a Keys Weekly, Key West Weekly, or Marathon Weekly newspaper, or Upper Keys Weekly, and it's a shameless plug, but we like to cover that type of stuff. So pick one of those up and find a friendly face, ask them the questions, because I promise you, I'll stand by this. 99% or more will be happy to tell you some secrets, and they're all pretty cool. Speaking of shameless plug, give us the web address for the paper. And very simple. It's www.keys, Keys, weekly, weekly.com, keysweekly.com. And we kind of pride ourselves on covering a lot of that local coverage and news that you wouldn't get somewhere else. It's not a ton of, TMZ gossip. It's more Florida Keys centered things that you can enjoy and get a feel. And it really gives you a feel for the people who live and work here too, and the communities, and what's going on. And there's some politics too. But that being said, it is a nice little finger on the pulse of what the Florida Keys are truly about. So thanks for letting me throw a plug in there. And we're always happy to have people take a look. But absolutely. When can we expect the Britt Meyers book on the Keys to come out? Again, you said it's a family show or family podcast, Rob. So, and I don't know what I can tell your listeners, but your brother would be in the book, and that would incriminate your family as well. So, isn't there a statute of limitations that's run out by now? Surely, right? No. On some things, but no. As a guy here in the Keys, and your brother's been down here to visit, and I think he would be a person who endorses this. I think it's one of the most unique places on earth. I'm very proud to live down here, and I think most locals are. And I'm only scratching the surface for you here on things you can do and see, and the people you can see. But it's got something for everyone. It really does. Well, we appreciate you being on the show, Britt. Yes. It's hey, I appreciate it. So when you guys come down here and check it out, make sure I know about it, and I'll let you in on some of those secrets when you guys get down here. Yeah, the next show we do on the Keys, we want to actually be in the Keys to do it. So we'll make sure and give you a heads up. We'll make it work. Sounds good. All right, thanks, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Family Vacationer. Make sure and subscribe to hear more of Rob and Danny.